All right. Hello and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be talking about how to become a good problem solver. Okay, so this is one of the most common questions I get asked in my work is, Allie, you talk all the time about being a good problem solver and you talk all the time about learning to solve our own problems and that self-love helps us solve our own problems and all of these things, but how do you become a good problem solver? I don't feel capable of actually figuring out what's going on in my life, and I don't feel capable of solving my own problems. And how does one feel like they're able to do that? And how does one feel like they're able to figure out their next steps and what they should be doing and all of these things? Because life is very overwhelming and there are lots of things that happen that we don't have control over. And yeah, it can feel like easier said than done. That's great. Become a good problem solver. But what does that actually mean? What does it even mean to be a good problem solver? So that is what I want to speak to directly in this video. But I also want to say that essentially everything that I'm teaching you, that everything about learning how to check in with your own emotions, learning how to check in with your body, learning how to regulate, learning how to feel your feelings, learning how to be honest with what you like and don't like and don't want, these are all problem solving skills, okay? Because this is essentially what a problem in our life is, which is we don't feel good, something isn't working, we're not getting the results that we're wanting, we're getting results that we don't want, we don't know what we want and we don't know how to get there. And that is what being in a state of problem is, right? We're in pain or we're suffering and we don't know how to get out. And so when we're learning how to tune into our own emotions, when we're learning how to process our own emotions, when we're learning how to observe ourselves and observe our patterns and observe where our pain comes from, and we're learning how to facilitate ourselves in processing all of that and feeling all of that, and then connecting with what's actually happening and all of these things, we are stepping into a state of problem solving. Okay, so a lot of the time when I get this question, they're like, well, how do you become a good problem solver? I'm like, I'm already telling you how to become a good problem solver. That everything in this self-love work is learning to problem solve. Okay, so you're already doing it. I'm telling you that you're already doing it. You're already figuring things out, you're already doing these things. And the more that you can connect with, again, your pain and your pleasure in a less charged, more observing type of way, the more you're able to connect with real reality. That's what that is. You're connecting with the real results of your actions, the real results of your behaviors, the real things that are actually happening and not just what you wish was happening or what you hope will happen or all of these things. And that connects you with how to move forward when things aren't going the way that you want them to, because you're more in alignment with what's actually happening. So there's that. But the biggest thing that I want to talk about today in the how to become a good problem solver video is, again, my big number one thing that I think is the most liberating thing that we can do for ourselves on the self-love path and on the path of being a human, is realizing that when we are living for acceptance and living for approval of other people, we are disconnecting ourselves from reality. And as we disconnect ourselves from reality, we make it so that we can't identify what our problems are, we can't identify why they're happening, and we can't identify steps or what we should do about them, because our problems are happening within real reality, right? The things that are hurting us, that or the things that we want or that we don't know how to get, and all of this stuff is happening within the system of cause and effect, real reality. And if we aren't seeing cause and effect, real reality for how it is, so if we are saying that this thing is happening because of this, I am in pain because someone is punching me in the face, but no one is punching you in the face, you trying to solve the problem of being punched in the face will never be solved. Therefore, the pain will never go away, because if being punched in the face isn't actually happening, that isn't the actual cause, it doesn't matter what you do about stopping someone from punching you in the face. You're still going to be in pain, because if the reason that your face is in pain is because you have an infection, you're not dealing with the infection. Do you see what I'm saying here? That when we are disconnected from what's actually happening, and when we are attaching false meaning to our pain and false meaning to where we think what we think we need to do to get where we want to go, we're never going to get there, because we're going to continue to do what we think we should do based on our understanding of what's happening. And if we keep doing that, it doesn't matter how well we do it, it doesn't matter how long we do it, it doesn't matter how effectively we do it, it's never going to get us where we want to go, because it isn't what's actually happening. And the biggest thing that I think holds most people back from being able to identify why they're in pain, to identify what it is that they need, and to identify the steps to get out of that pain, is because we have this indoctrination, all of us, to some degree or other, that acceptance of other people, being approved of by other people, being loved by other people, is the solution to our pain. Okay? That being accepted, being loved, being approved of is the solution to getting what we want. And this, I think, is why I've talked about why I think approval is the ultimate false matrix. Because we are getting confused so much of the time without realizing that we're getting confused. That fitting in and being loved and being accepted is almost never the thing we actually want. Rather, in our childhoods, right, we all learned that I am incapable. I don't know how to identify my own needs. I don't know how to get what I want. I don't know how to understand what's going on with myself. I don't understand how the world works. I have my caregivers, who are to me, essentially, gods. They are all-knowing, they are all-encompassing, they have all the answers, they have access to everything. And it is through them understanding me and empathing me and loving me that they then give me what I want and take away the things that I don't want. Yes? Next thing, we have to understand that as human beings, we have a complex set of wants and needs. Yes? We have our base physical, air, water, hydration, food, clothing, shelter, that kind of thing. We have to keep our physical bodies alive. We have those base needs. And then on top of that, we have emotional needs, right? All of us have the need to be validated in our emotional experience, to be seen in our emotional experience. We have the need to be able to express our emotions, our anger, our sadness, our joy, our peace. We have mental and emotional needs, or mental needs, right? We need to be challenged. We need to be stimulated. We need to learn new things. That's a human need. That's always going to be there. We have expression needs. Yes? We all have fundamental parts of our personality and parts of our nature that need to be expressed, or we're just not going to feel fulfilled as human beings. We're not going to feel satisfied in a life where we don't feel like we can be ourselves. And as ethereal and as kind of wispy as that kind of phrase is, I do kind of feel like that is a felt sensation, and it's not that we find who we are and our personality and how we are and we're just like that forever. It's a growth thing. Expressing who we are and expressing what's going on, that's something that's going to continue to evolve and change for all of us, for all of our lives. What it means to be expressing who I am in this moment, because we don't have a a set personality or even like a single personality. Most of us, we have multiple facets of our personality and multiple facets of ourselves that throughout our lifetime need to be expressed. So we have that. And we have relational needs. We do have the need to connect. We have the need to be seen and to see. We have the need to experience other people's emotions and to connect with what's going on with them. And that connection need is real, and it is a need in and of itself. It's not just that we need each other to meet our physical needs and help us survive, right? Because I think a lot of the time we can kind of get a little bit too far into the like humans are just using each other for keeping each other alive, and like that's the only reason we ever desire to interact is like for some sort of survival need. And I don't think that that's true. I feel like we have the need to be in each other's lives and to relate and to connect in ways that are not just so that you will help me get food and water. Do you see what I'm saying? So we have all of those needs. And when one of those needs is not being met, when we're being antagonized in some area, when we are in a state where we are having to live in a way that is damaging to us on any one of those layers or levels, we are going to feel pain. And that is what a problem is. If we have the desire to have something or to express something or to become something and we can't, that is a problem. You see, that needs to be solved in order for us to be able to feel better. So this is our kind of like definition of the problem, what a problem is. And it all comes down to having a part of the self that isn't able to express healthfully, that isn't able to grow, that isn't able to rest, that isn't able to be at peace. That's a problem, okay? And then those problems cause pain, and that's why we have pain, to let us know that something is antagonistic to our survival, to our being well. And that pain is there to alert us to fix the problem, to change something. And then again, right? So we grew up, all of us, being handed this is how reality works blueprint, which is you don't understand yourself, you can't understand yourself, you don't understand reality, you can't understand reality. So you are dependent upon your caregivers for absolutely everything. And you don't have the cognitive capacity to understand that they are just flawed human beings like everybody else who are not perfect and can't give you everything. Also, we are being raised into a culture. The culture of our families, the culture of our religions or non-religions, the spirituality, whatever it was that our caregivers raised us in, the culture of our neighborhoods, the culture of our country, the culture of our government, the culture of our education system, the culture of our entertainment systems, the culture of our food systems. We're being raised into a culture where we're getting all of these messages all day long about what is and isn't right, is and isn't good, is and isn't the way to be towards success, what success is and isn't. So we're getting these two kind of umbrella conditioning that's telling us you need to be loved and accepted and approved of in order to have pleasure and in order to make your pain go away. That is the answer. When you are in pain, the answer is turn to your caregivers, express in some way so that they will fix you, they will help you, they will understand you. That's how we solve problems as children. We manipulate our own behavior in some way, form, or fashion to get our caregivers to understand us and then help us. And then we perceive on any level of them not being able to help us, not being supportive of us when they're antagonistic towards us in any way. We perceive that as a flaw in us because we have to. You see, we have to see that any part of our caregivers not understanding us, not validating us, not supporting us, antagonizing us, anything like this, as being something wrong with us, because they are our providers. They are absolutely everything to us. And they are handing us culture. They're handing us our perspective. They're handing us our perception. They're handing us, these are the rules for life. These are the rules for what is right and wrong. And being accepted and being approved of, here's all the things you have to do and have to be, and here's all the things you can't do and can't be, in order that you are accepted and approved of, not just by us, but by at culture at large. And that is how you survive. That is how you escape pain, and that is how you have pleasure. So that's the program we were all handed. Pain is a result of caregivers not giving you what you want or antagonizing you. And if it's an antagonizing a part of you, then we learn that that is something wrong with you. You have to hate that part. You have to fight that part. That is now an existential threat to you. We learn, these are the ways that I have to be. So if any of these things hurt, any of these things don't feel good, any of these things I don't like doing, there's something wrong with me that they hurt. There's something wrong with me that I don't like doing it. There's something wrong with me. I have to deflect that. I have to deny that. I have to suppress that. And then we're being taught, this is culture. If you're raised Christian, you were indoctrinated from your childhood that the Christian way of life is the right way of life. If you were raised, your parents were really capitalist, and it was like, right? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, fight for your money, be what the market wants you to be. You learned that that is the one acceptable way to be. And then if, again, any part of you doesn't feel good doing that, if any part of you struggles with doing that, if there's any conflict on the inside about that, we're all conditioned to believe that that means there's something broken about us. Which means, for the most part, most of us are problem solving via the avenue of trying to make ourselves more acceptable. Because of course, we were trained that any amount of pain we're in is because we're being rejected, is because we're not being understood, it's because we're being antagonized. And that the solution is to fit in, to make ourselves more acceptable, to make ourselves more lovable, to be more of what our conditioning raised us to be, to reject and try to fix all these broken parts of self that don't align. And this, to me, is the reason why most of us spend our whole lives feeling like we aren't capable of solving our problems. Because we all interpret our pain as being something wrong with us. And that's the fundamental disconnect from real reality that stops us from ever being able to actually identify what our problem is and to take steps towards it, towards fixing it. Because in real reality, even in our childhoods, and this is something we have to really seriously consider, even in our childhoods, being loved, accepted, and approved of didn't solve our problem. Even in childhood, being loved, accepted, and approved of was never the thing that gave us pleasure or took our pain away. Acceptance, love, and approval was only ever a middleman when we could not understand ourselves or fend for ourselves. So to put it in an example, when we were a child and we were hungry and we cried, our mother, our caregiver, coming and loving us and hugging us and patting us on the back did not solve the problem of us being hungry. If a mother just loved and loved and loved her baby but never fed it, what would happen to that baby? It would die. It would absolutely die. On the contrary, if a mother didn't love her child, so didn't give the child these warm, cuddly feelings, but fed them. Would there be problems? Yeah. Right? Like that child wouldn't develop normally because it wasn't getting its emotional and its relational needs met. But ultimately, that baby would still probably survive. And I understand that there are some babies that really do failure to thrive when they're not being held and touched, because again, I think that the holding and the touching, again, is a fundamental need that is a part of a survival need, especially as a small child. But so let's say a toddler then, right? Like if a toddler is loved but not fed, the toddler will die. If a toddler is fed but not loved, the toddler will live. Because the actual problem was lack of nutrition. And love, acceptance, and approval did not solve the problem of lack of nutrition. But from our perspective, being loved, accepted, and approved of was the thing that was going to equal us having our actual problem solved. And we didn't have perception, right? Like we weren't cognitively saying, okay, I'm hungry, so I'm going to call out to mom, and her loving and accepting of me means that she's more likely to understand that I'm hungry, and then she's more likely to feed me, and then I'm more likely to survive. We weren't looking at it like that. It was all jumbled up of like, I did this thing, and then she did this thing, and then my pain went away. And then, right, as we grow, as our perception is growing, we continue to feed this narrative because that's how our perception was working. We just weren't aware. We weren't picking up on all of these things about what was really going on because reality was very complex and we were very, very small. It was just being wired in and wired in and wired in that approval and acceptance equals survival and safety. So now, in our adulthoods, when most of us get triggered and we don't feel safe, we don't feel like we're getting our needs met, when we have pain, what happens? Most of us get triggered into feeling like I gotta fix something about myself, I'm not doing the right thing, I'm not living my purpose, I gotta lose weight, I gotta whatever. It's my personality, something is wrong with me, I need to find the right relationship, I need to do these things. Or we spiral into hopelessness. I don't know what to do, I can't fix this, I don't know what's happening, someone needs to come and save me. And that's our childhood coping mechanism, that's our childhood reasoning, trying to help us. That's what's really happening there. When we go into self-improvement and when we go into hopelessness, that's our childhood coping mechanism of we're in pain and the solution to pain is somebody outside of me loving me so that they will then understand me and provide for me the thing that I need. Someone outside of me loving me so they will take the pain away. And then it gets really messy and really confusing when we're talking about like our relational needs and we get into these situations where we're constantly trying to be who people want us to be so that they will love and accept us. But in so doing, we're never being our authentic selves. And therefore, any love and approval that we're getting for being who we're not feels very empty. And it always feels like we're on shaky ground and we always feel like the person could turn around and not like us at any moment. So any amount of acceptance and love and approval that we actually do get feels hollow because it's not for who we really are. And then we're constantly afraid that our real self is going to slip out. And then we're going to be rejected. And then we're going to be alone. And then we're going to die. You see? So, again, this is why I really think for a lot of us, accepting that rejection isn't the end of the world is the first step to liberating ourselves to being able to identify what our problems actually are. Because when we're caught in these loops of self-improvement, these loops of self-help, these loops of if I could just fix this thing about myself, if I could just perfect this thing about me, if I could just make this flaw of mine go away. We need to understand that the reason we're doing that is because we are in pain. It's because we have a need we don't understand. It's because something is happening that we want that we don't know how to get. But we're not identifying what that thing actually is. We're not identifying what the pain actually is. We're not identifying what the thing we want actually is. We're feeling the pain, and then our nervous system and our programming is taking over. And it's saying, okay, the solution to pain is acceptance. The solution to pain is fitting in. The solution to pain is someone else understanding me and saving me. And then we're off on this rabbit trail that has nothing to do with what the pain actually is. Right? So if the pain that you're actually feeling is this career that I'm in doesn't feel good, what I was indoctrinated that I must do and that I must be in order to be successful and to be loved and approved of and good, doesn't work for who I really am. Most of us are not going to see that. We're just going to constantly see the parts of ourselves that are broken and that suck for never being able to do the job properly. Right? So as long as we're failing at the job, or we're not doing the job as well as we could, or we're not succeeding, we're never going to take a step back and say, maybe this just isn't the career for me. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And if we do, most of the time we flip out, right? Like, if I can't do this, then I'm a failure. What am I going to do? What other options are there? Everything else is terrible. Or we're successful at the job. We're doing a pretty great job at the job. But then we have to cope and numb and self-sabotage in the rest of our lives. And we think that our coping and our numbing and our self-sabotaging is the thing that's wrong with us. And if we could just get rid of the coping and numbing and self-sabotage, we'd be great at our jobs and we'd be great in life and everything would be awesome. And it's just this coping and numbing and self-sabotaging that's getting in the way. Instead of seeing that, no, you're in pain at your job. And so even though you can white knuckle it and even though you can do it, it's a struggle. It hurts. And you're going to have to do something about that pain. So you numb, you cope, you self-sabotage. We might have, again, even bigger than that for most of us. We have pain and trauma from our childhoods of being rejected and being abandoned and not getting our needs met, and the conditioning that we were given around who we are and what is okay and what is not okay and what's allowed to express and what's not allowed to express. That hurt, and that wasn't correct. This is the big key. Our caregivers gave us, this is the blueprint for a successful, good life. And when we follow that blueprint, we don't actually get a good life that feels good. We don't actually get the success we were promised. But we can't see that because to actually embrace that, to embrace our feelings and to embrace that we're not bad and we're not wrong and we're not failing, but we're hurting and things aren't working, and it's not because we suck, it's because what was handed to us doesn't work, leads to a massive existential crisis of, okay, well, if what I was handed wasn't right, then what is, number one? How do I figure out what is right? How do I figure out what to do? How do I figure out what is going to make me happy? And number two, right? So I literally am like, oh shit, I don't know what to do now. And number two is, it leads to the existential crisis of realizing that we weren't safe and that we weren't protected the way that we thought that we were, and that life wasn't as stable as we thought that it was, and that it's, again, not something wrong with us, but that what we were handed just isn't correct, and therefore our caregivers weren't perfect, and therefore we weren't safe with them. And that's scary. And then the third thing is that it leads to us realizing that we're going to have to do things that are going to get us rejected. We're going to have to go ways that other people don't understand. And this, I think, is the biggest thing that stops most of us from being able to solve our problems in terms of actual action steps. Is that a lot of the time, our problems are because of what normal is. A lot of the time, our problems are because of what normal is. Because of what we were trained we had to do and we had to be in order to be good and in order to be safe and in order to be right. And we have this base program that tells us if we are rejected, we are going to die. Because it is through being accepted by others that we are empathed, understood, and then given what we needed. And so all of us feel deep inside that if I go and do something different, if I trust myself instead of trusting my indoctrination, if I go and live in a way that actually works for me, or if I try to not live in the way that everyone else is living, people are going to be upset with me, which they are, spoiler alert. And then how am I going to live? Right? And we have what Martha Beck calls the generalized other, which is, again, we've been indoctrinated into a culture that this is the right way to be, and everyone else and everything else is wrong and bad, right? We're not just given, these are the rules for life, you should follow them. We're given, these are the rules for life, and everything that everyone else is doing is horrible. To lesser and greater extents, we were all handed, this is how to be, and look at those people over there who are doing something different than us. Look at how horrible their lives are. Look at how evil they are. Look at how bad they are. Look at how wrong they are. Look at all the horrible results that they're getting. So we're not just conditioned that our way that we were handed is the right way. We're also conditioned that to do anything else is to ruin your life and to lose everyone. Because the generalized other to you, we all feel like if we step outside of the bounds of our conditioning, there's no one out there who will love us. We're going to lose everyone. And what we really mean is we're going to lose the 5 or the 10 people that are closest to us that also believe our conditioning. Our caregivers, the authority figures that we are close to, the friends that we're close to in our communities that live how we live and think how we think. Because as humans, we're pretty insular. We tend to be birds of a feather who flock together, which then reinforces this idea that everyone is like us, and everyone who isn't like us is failing and horrible. To lesser or greater degrees, we were all taught that. So to think I'm going to do something different, for most of us just feels like, well, then I'm just going to lose everyone, and then how will I survive? How will I be okay? How will I figure anything out? So to bring this closer to like what most of us are like dealing with in our day-to-day lives, when we have a problem in our actual life, when we have a pain that we are experiencing with our body or with our jobs or in our relationship or whatever, almost all of us have the knee-jerk reaction of what we go to try to fix that thing. Right? Like all of us have our way that we currently try to solve problems. The thing we go to as being the answer. Food, diet, leaving our partners, trying to polarize by role-playing in some way. We all have this is my solution that I pretty much use every single time. And what we're not doing is taking a step back and saying, okay, wait, can I first even fully understand what my problem actually is? And this is why I say, like, the first kind of key is for most of us to say, okay, did I just step into a self-help modality? Was my automatic reaction to whatever just happened in my life, I need to fix something about myself? Because if so, that's your clue right there that we've disconnected from reality. We're no longer in problem-solving skills from an adult perspective. We're in childhood coping. I need to make myself more approvable, more loved, more acceptable by these people outside of myself? Or just, this is what I need to do to improve myself because this is the reason my life is sucking? That's our first key that we have disconnected from true problem solving. Because the problem is never that there's something fundamentally wrong with you. And the problem is never that you are just not being accepted enough. Even if what the problem is, like the real problem is I am wanting connection right now. I am wanting validation. I am wanting to be seen and loved and supported, and people aren't doing that. The answer is still not to self-improve yourself, to become more acceptable. Because again, remember, if you have to change yourself to become more acceptable, when what you want is authentic connection, you will never have authentic connection. To become more liked by changing who you are, to be more likable to the people around you, will not fill your need for authentic connection and validation and witnessing, because they are inherently opposed. You can't be pretending to be something that someone likes and feeling supported and validated in what you actually are at the same time. Even if someone is mad at you and you are not living up to their expectation, the answer is still not to improve yourself to be more of what they want you to be. The answer in real reality is never self-help or self-improvement. That's what I mean. It's never self-improvement. Even if our real problem is I'm sabotaging myself, I'm scapegoating, I'm numbing, I'm hurting myself in some way, the answer is still not to improve yourself. The answer will be to understand what is the need you're trying to get met, what is the thing, the pain you're trying to remedy, what are you running from, what do you actually want, what do you not want, and how do you figure those things out in real reality. So again, the first step in becoming a good problem solver is being able to identify what the actual problem is. And for most of us, we never make it past step one because our minds and our bodies have been so conditioned that when I'm in pain, I need to be accepted and loved and approved of. And then what do? We go into whatever self-help, self-improvement, self-blame, self-shame, fixing myself in this one way that I hope if I fix or improve myself in this one way, I will finally become what my conditioning wanted me to become so that I will be liked, and then I will be perfectly loved, and then I will be understood, and then those people will meet my needs and help me get out of my pain. And we don't see that. We're not consciously thinking that. But that's what's happening. So like think of it in this other way. We live in a culture. We literally live in a culture. Okay, well, first thing, we live in a world where it is a part of real reality that because of how our systems are set up, the more access to to resources you have, the safer you are in terms of how safe we can be within the relative context of being alive on this planet. When you have adequate resources, you have access to clean water, to clean food, to shelter, to help if your relationships aren't going well. You have access to a job to be able to make money in order to have these things. You have access to other people who have expertise, like doctors and lawyers and educators and all of these things that allow, and then you also have access to time and freedom in ways that allow you to explore these other parts of your personality to have a life that feels good. So it is a real part of real reality that having resources to a point does equal happiness, because being supported and having our needs met is part of what makes us happy. Yeah, I know we all say happiness is frowned on the inside and all these things, but again, we are also 3D reality people who have bodies that are going to hurt when we're not getting our physical needs met. We are 3D real reality people who have emotional and connection needs that it's going to hurt when they're not being met. And that's not like a psychological weakness. Again, it's, if we didn't have pain when we had physical problems, all of us would be dead. Right? People who lack a pain impulse tend to die really young because they don't have reality telling them, hey, injury. You got to change something. You're being degraded. Because as much as the spiritual people might want to tell you otherwise, you can be degraded on this planet by not having your needs met. So the more we have our needs met, the more our baseline for feeling peace and happiness and security is going to be there. So yes, we can do our spiritual work and all these things and learn to accept when we can't have access, and we can help ourselves in ways that we can, but ultimately, right? Like, we just feel better when we have our needs met, and that shouldn't be something controversial, right? That's reality. And therefore, having access to wealth because of how our system works means you're going to have more access to the things that you need and the things that you want. And therefore, in our culture, things that represent wealth are idolized by us. We love designer clothing and name brand this and expensive these things so much because a part of it is that it represents wealth. And wealth in real reality does provide us with something. That's not a fiction. So in real reality, wealth does have value in our system because of how our system is set up, because wealth equals being able to have access to those things that you need to survive and to thrive. And as a consensus reality, people who are still indoctrinated into the idea that love and approval equals safety, we get our wires crossed. Because the Fendi bag or the name brand this or name brand that doesn't actually provide us with anything on an actual physical level. Right? It meets no need to have a fancy designer handbag, to have fancy designer clothes, to have the latest this or the latest that. You can have a shitty bag that works and a Fendi bag that works, and so long as they're both serving their utilitarian purpose, there's no difference between these two things in real reality. The perception of one of them being more valuable than the other, right, comes from the fact that the designer bag is, trending. It's going to go out of style in 5 minutes, which means you have the money to spend, you have the disposable income to spend on a really expensive thing that's going to go out of style in 5 minutes, and that's the point of it. That's made with really high quality materials, whatever. But at the end of the day, isn't that much more utilitarian than any other bag? And we do it because it represents wealth, which to us is security. So it's a statement. It's a statement of, look at my position in society. And as a culture, of course, we tend to value people who represent wealth because they have what we want. We want to be like them. And we've been taught to idolize the rich and to idolize those who have lots of money, because in our system we've been trained that those people are good people. They got there for a good reason. They worked harder than everyone else. They did something better than everyone else. And if you can be more like them, you too can have what they have. The access and the resources and the time and the freedom and all the greatness that luxury and wealth gives us. So then we have people who don't have the actual resources to buy the expensive bag, who don't have the actual money to do that, going into debt, not paying for things they should be paying for, buying the Fendi bag because it represents wealth, and then people might look at them and think that they're rich, and they will get that approval hit. They will get that, oh, you must be a good person hit. When in real reality, did buying that bag improve their life? No. Did it make them safer? No. Did it bring them closer to what that bag is supposed to represent? No. It took them farther away from what that bag is supposed to represent. They went into debt to buy the bag. But they're doing it because of the social reason of people will think that they're rich. Think about how totally backwards that is. I will go into debt, so an actual real reality will make myself less safe, less secure, in order that I have this thing that will make it so that people outside of myself think something of me that would in real reality be great if it were true. But it is not true. And I will sacrifice the actual having of the actual thing in order to be perceived that I have the thing. It would be better for them to buy the shitty bag and save that money so they look like they're not rich because they have the whatever knockoff brand or whatever it is, the utilitarian bag, and they saved the money and made themselves actually closer to stability, but everyone else thinks they look poor, and we feel bad about that. Like, that's what's going on in our consensus reality problem-solving skills. If I just become better at having this type of relationship, right? Like every time I try and date a guy who fits in with my culture, he's Christian, he's good, he's all these things, I want to peel my eyes out every time. I go into my coping mechanisms every single time after every single date. What's wrong with me? What do I need to do to make it so that I can be with a guy like this? That's what we're doing. Like, that's our problem solving. Instead of like, okay, wait, why don't I like this? Why am I coping? Why am I numbing? Why am I stimulating after every single date? Why do I feel like I want to crawl out of my skin? What if it's not something wrong with me? Okay, so what it actually is I don't want to date a guy like this. I don't want to be in that kind of relationship. Oh God, what are my parents going to think? What are my friends going to think? What are the neighbors going to think? Like, that's what's really going on. Okay, so then what kind of relationship do I actually want? What would actually work for me? And then, oh God, how am I going to find that? No one around me is anything like that. Everyone is the Christian guy. Do you see what I'm saying? That's why it's so difficult to become a problem solver. And then the second thing too is that, again, most of us have been handed, when you're in pain, this is what you should do. So we're either dating the guy because we're lonely and we want to be with someone. So we date people who are in the pool of who we're supposed to date. That hurts, that sucks. So we're like, forget it, I'm just not going to date anybody. I'm just going to be alone and that'll be fine. And then we do that for a little while, and then that feels shitty, and then we're like, okay, well, maybe dating would be better. And we do that for a little while until that's way too painful, and then we go to the opposite. And then we think, well, I've tried everything. I've tried dating the guys, I can't make myself date the guys. I've tried being single, that doesn't work, so now there's no solution. Because we're not seeing that we didn't actually look for a solution. We didn't actually look for what the pain was, and we didn't actually look for a solution. We felt pain, we did what we were conditioned to do, we felt pain, and then we rebelled and just did the opposite or gave up, and that was it. We didn't identify what is the actual pain. I do want to be with someone. I don't want to be alone. I want to have a close relationship and a partner. I don't want to have a partnership like this. That's way more complex than just fix myself so that I can fit in and find the thing that I'm supposed to find, or forget it, throw the baby out with the bathwater, just don't even bother. Right? Most of us are living with, I'm doing what my conditioning is telling me to do and I'm failing at it, or I'm just rebelling completely to the opposite, and that's not working either. Right? Like the diet culture thing. I'm going to do the perfect diet and I'm going to be lean and I'm going to be all of these things. And then we realize that fucking sucks and everything hurts and it didn't work. So we're like, fuck it. I'm just going to eat everything that I want and I'm not going to take care of my body in any way. And like, who cares? And then that doesn't feel good. And then we just swing between these two things and think there's no solution. Because the solution is in the middle and it's complex. It's, okay, what am I actually feeling? What do I actually want? What works about what I was given? What doesn't work about what I was given? What are the other options? Can it be okay that I go outside of what I was taught and maybe lose the approval of some people and realize that their approval isn't the thing that's keeping me alive? And that their rejection isn't the thing that's going to kill me? Because their approval and their rejection now as an adult essentially has nothing to do with anything. If they control your paycheck or if you're in like a really abusive relationship, number one, if you're in a really abusive relationship, that is beyond the scope of this work. Please get help. Please look for support. If you are in a situation where you are unsafe to be yourself and to change based on what works for you, because you will actually be harmed, that is not what we're talking about here. That is a real situation that actually does exist, and please get real help for that. If you are unsafe, that is a valid, real, true thing, and you deserve support and love and support for that. Okay? And then the second thing is, again, we do live in a world, right, where bosses control our paychecks, and there are certain levels of having to fit in that are a part of real reality. So that's why, again, we say we are constantly working. We are going to be constantly being a good problem solver. It means we're not looking for the one solution to our complex human problems. We are going to step outside and say, okay, where am I in self-improvement? Where am I trying to hold on to the hope, right? That if I just perfect myself in the way that my conditioning told me I needed to be perfect, that this will solve my problems. Because that's what we're doing. Again, when we're in that self-improvement space, we're holding on to the idea that our conditioning is true. And that all we have to do is fix ourselves and then we will be perfect. Because the alternative is to realize that our conditioning is not true, and then we have to figure out for ourselves what does and doesn't work. So then we then have to back up and start to say, okay, what hurts about what's happening? Where can I process my emotions? Where can I let myself be sad and let myself be angry and go through an emotional catharsis before I even try to identify what's actually happening? Because that's a big part of it for a lot of us. That true problem solving starts with emotional validation and processing. We just let ourselves be sad about what we're sad about and mad about what we're mad about, and we don't look for solutions right away. We don't try and figure it out right away. We let ourselves have the emotional catharsis process first, because those emotions are going to give us answers about what is and isn't working. Because remember, our consciousness is programmed. Well, these kinds of relationships are good. This kind of job is right. Having this kind of body is the best thing. But when you start to connect with your emotions, and every time you try to have that job or you try to have that relationship or you try to do that thing, there's emotional pain. That's your guidance system saying, okay, wait, there's something out of alignment here. It's not to say that that thing is totally wrong or off or whatever, but it's saying, okay, I need to take care of myself. What is this pain? What is this pain telling me? Where is this pain coming from? How can I get this pain validated and seen? I might not be right about what this pain means right now. I might not be right about what I need to do about it, but I can validate that it hurts, that there is pain. Now, what do I need in terms of support to start to process some of this pain so that I can start to eventually identify where it's coming from? And then that, again, is what helps to break us out of our conditioning. Because if something we've been trained to believe is right hurts every time, we have to start to believe the pain. We have to start to believe reality. And again, this is not the same thing as clinical depression, where everything hurts and everything is gray. That's a different thing. If you're in a situation where literally everything hurts and everything feels bad and everything feels wrong and you can't identify anything that you would want or anything that would feel good or anything you want to move towards, again, please get help. That's not what this video is talking about. We can't give general advice that works for everybody. But for most people, we can start to identify that there are some things that feel good and there are some things that feel scary. And then realizing that on top of that, now we're going to have to do things that are going to get us rejected. Now we are going to have to do things that are different from what we were taught. We're not going to just rebel for rebelling's sake. We're going to start to say, no, what's actually hurting? What do I actually want? Where do I actually want to go? We have to start to be able to identify our actual problems. So again, if you're in a state of saying, well, my problem is that I don't have a partner, or my problem is that I'm not the right size. If it's a consensus reality approval thing, that's not it. What do you actually want? What do you actually want? What actually hurts? We have to be able to identify what our problem actually is, and it's not a lack of acceptance. It might be, I want someone to connect with authentically. That's a real need, but that's a clear thing. That's not, I just want people to approve of me. I want a partner who can partner with me, who can be with the actual me that actually exists. So what do I actually want for my life? What do I want my life to look like? What are the things that work for me? And then how can I slowly start to take steps towards those things in real reality without expecting that there's a step that's going to get me from here to there? Without looking for the solution, the perfect thing. That does not exist. We're going to look for what's the next step I can take towards that. And if that next step fails and I fall on my face, what did I learn? Part of being a good problem solver is we don't give up. We're not bullheaded, that our way is the way and I'm just going to keep doing this one thing over and over again and try to force reality to make that the right way. We're going to say, okay, I know what I want and I know the general direction I'm trying to head. I know the thing that doesn't work. Now I'm going to try to move towards this thing. I'm going to try to move away from this thing by taking the step that I think currently makes the most sense to me right now. And then if that step doesn't work, we don't say, well, it's impossible, I can't do it. And we don't say, well, I'm just going to keep doing this one step over and over and over again, and I'm never going to give up. We say, okay, this step didn't work. Why not? What did I learn? What did it show me? And how can I use that information to inform my next step? That's what being a good problem solver is. Where am I looking for consensus reality approval? Okay, that's not it. What is actually going on? What do I actually want? What do I actually need? How can I start to understand myself so I'm no longer in child perspective that says, I need someone else to understand me and then give me the thing that I want or that I need to make me feel good. And so my one job is to be approved of by those around me so that they will rescue me. That's not what it is anymore. Now we're adults and we say, okay, no, I have to identify my own wants. I have to identify my own pain. I have to identify what is and isn't working for me. It's no one else can do that for me anymore. I'm an adult who has to be able to first identify my own problem. And sometimes we need therapy, sometimes we need books, sometimes we need coaching, sometimes we need programs to help us figure that stuff out. But we're doing it from I believe myself. I am in pain, I have a thing, something's not working, and I believe myself, and it's not because I'm broken. It's not because there's something wrong with me. It's something in reality isn't aligning and isn't feeling good and isn't working. But it's not that I suck. So now how do I start to identify what I actually want and what I actually need and what hurts and what is working and what doesn't? And then how can I start to take slow steps towards what I want, learning from every step that I take? Not giving up, not just rebelling and doing the opposite, being critically thinking. What's working, what's not working, what worked about that step, what didn't work, what am I learning, how does reality work, what hurts, I believe it, what feels good, I believe it, what did I learn based on that? That's what being a good problem solver is. So all of these tools of self-love and regulation and being able to orient and see what real reality is and all that stuff, that is this. Breaking out of the matrix that approval is what you want is like the first step to becoming a good problem solver, because it helps you identify what your problems actually are. And then being able to love yourself enough that you can fail and be wrong and get it wrong and not do it right and still love yourself and still learn and then keep moving forward. To love yourself enough to do something different than what you've been taught and what you've been trained and realize that rejection is not the end of the world. That is what is required to be a good problem solver, because you're gonna have to go your own way in some places. You're gonna have to be rejected. People aren't gonna understand you. And you gotta learn to be okay with that. You gotta learn to see that you don't die. You're gonna be okay. And that's what it takes sometimes. And sometimes consensus reality is totally right, and you gotta do that. But it's based on result. It's not based on, well, if that's what everyone is doing, fuck them and I'm not a sheeple. That doesn't always work. You gotta be in real reality. What are the actual results? Where's the actual pain? Where's the actual pleasure? What am I learning? That's being a good problem solver. Okay? So I hope that was helpful in some way. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, concerns in the comments. I love answering. And other than that, have a fantastic day, week, night, month, whenever I see you next. Until then, see you later.